Why, hello there, Internet. My name is John Jags, and I am extremely excited to share with you my workflow from the Cinema4D into Unreal into After Effects to create cool board game commercials. I've been working with Ultra Pro Entertainment, and we've done some cool projects for Magic the Gathering and their accessories line for sleeves and deck boxes. We've done some projects for board games called Jurassic Snack, Past the Pandas, Cosmic Cows, and all of this is using Cinema4D into Unreal into After Effects to create these promo videos. Today I want to show you that workflow, so let's just dive right into it. Alright, we have a scene that I have built and animated in Cinema4D. If I were to show you every little bit of this tutorial, it would be hours long. Stay tuned to the end of the video where you can learn more of the intricacies of this. But let's talk about this scene here. If I go to frame 0, we can see that I have a camera pulling back, all the game pieces landing in the scene, and a slight camera shakes, camera drift. Nothing too crazy here. I mean, the modeling and the texturing and whatnot does take a little bit of time, but hey, now that we have the animation stuff done, we can start bringing things to Unreal. But first, there's a couple of things we have to do. One, we have to make sure that this is saved for Cineware. So if you hit Control D on your keyboard, you can see your project settings. I typically work in 24 frames per second. I know some work in 60. With real-time rendering, you can even do 120, your choice. I prefer 24. We have 144 frame animation because this is going to be a 6-second ad, and we need to save this for Cineware. So click on the Cineware button, check everything. Just make sure you check everything, the checkbox. Check it, check it, check it, you're good. Go into your render settings up here. I typically work in 3840 by 2160, which is 4K. If you're exporting to 1080 ad, that's totally fine. I'll typically compress this down to like 1920 by 1080 for Instagram or 1080 by 1080 for Instagram. Really depends on what your creative brief says. Make sure you get that locked in. Hit save on your keyboard, Control S, and before we bring this into Unreal, I want to add a couple things. So first, this camera here. Unreal does not like target cameras natively, so we have to bake this. So what we do is we right click on our camera and we'll click on Show F-Curve. And we can see our animation for our camera. Click on your camera, Function, Bake Objects. And from 0 to 144 frames, we'll just click OK. Now we have lots and lots and lots of keyframes. And it's important to do this because if you don't, then Unreal will be a little funky with the camera animation. So if we look through our second camera, it's literally an exact duplicate. Go to frame 0, play that back. Pretty sweet. Now, one of the things I do want to add is a name to this camera. So we'll call this UE Cam. Unreal Cam, and then I want to add a plane object, and this is mainly going to be for After Effects, but we'll talk about that in a second. So we'll call this solid, and we'll set this to rotate on the Z axis. I'll just push that right there. Maybe just scale it down. Where's that little handle? There it is. Boop, boop, boop. And I have my grid lines turned on my camera just so that I can see the composition of everything. Go back to the solid. Let me scooch that right there. Switch to my default camera. Where is that living in 3D space? Okay, it's right there. Maybe push it back just a little bit. Go back to the UE cam. How's that look? Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to right click on that solid and we'll go to render tags, external compositing tags. We'll hit Control S and save that, and we'll click solid there, anchor point center. That's fine. And then what we're going to do is, Control S, just make sure you save. We're going to go to Unreal now. Are you ready for that? All right, so we're finally in Unreal, and I have a scene that I already built. We won't talk about how to build these scenes in this tutorial, otherwise this would be a very long tutorial, but let me go over what I have here. So I have some mountains in the background that I picked up from the Epic Game Store. Typically you can find some things for free or super cheap. I think I paid like $5-10 for it. I have a landscape here, and I got this moss floor background from Megascans and then just made that into a material, did some extrusion stuff and made it look like this. And I have some lights in the scene. If I hit G on the keyboard, I can see my controllers. I have a light, I have a directional light that will add a sun sort of effect. I have some clouds in the sky. There's a sun thing over there. That's kind of where my directional light is actually. And yeah, so we got to import the Cinema4D file into Unreal. First, you have to make sure you have the Datasmith plugin enabled. So if you don't see that, click on plugins up here. You'll type in C4D in the search bar, enable that. You'll have to restart Unreal, but then once you have that, it's there inside your project file. Alright, so we have everything ready to go. We're working in a level here called Jurassic Snack Scene 1, which is what I was doing. And we'll just import this. So we'll go to the folder where I have this saved, Jurassic Snack 01, click OK, and you typically don't have to futz with all this stuff all that much, so just leave that as is, click import, and you wait. Now it's worth mentioning that this window workflow, the way I have my user interface created and displaying inside Unreal, is actually not the default. I typically prefer the way After Effects and their user interface works, so I just emulated that same principle, but you could do anything you want with it. I just moved some things around. Now, we have the scene already imported from Cinema4D into Unreal. There's some issues happening here. One, there's this weird thing without a texture. That's actually the plane that we had in Cinema4D. It's just my reference point so that I could know where I should put the game pieces. So let's go back to Unreal. So we have that plane selected. We can just delete that. Don't need that anymore. I have the box, but the box is not here. What happened to it? Sometimes the materials from Cinema4D into Unreal will be a little funky, so I'll just make my own sometimes. So if I go into my contents folder here, and then I go to materials, I can find the Jurassic Snack box. I can find the box, game box right there, and then materials, it's just this blank thing right here. So I can just click and drag that. And hey, there's the box again. And if I double click on that material, we can see what's happening here. There's some scary nodes, but we'll talk about that in another video. It's actually a lot simpler once you figure out what all these things mean. But we have the UV map for the box. We have an alpha mask, so anything that's black is going to cut out the box so we can have the little window that's actually on the game box. We have a normal map and then some metallic roughness and occlusion. So we can just close that material. I didn't really save anything, and then we can go back and we can go to the Jurassic Snack Scene 01, because right now our pieces are all the way up in the sky. Why are they there instead of on the ground? Well, we did animate it. It's on frame 01. So let's just go into Jurassic Snack 01, animations, and if we play that through, hey look, the pieces are coming down, just like we had in Cinema4D. So most of our work is pretty much done here. So if we click on perspective and then click on UE cam, we can scrub through our timeline and see that everything's animating in. Super sweet, super simple. I like this because it allows me to just view my viewport in how it would actually display, mostly. So now we need to make this feel a little bit more atmospheric, live-like. What are we gonna do? Well, first I want to add some grass and some foliage. So let's just save, just to make sure that's there. Go to modes, foliage, and we can see that there's nothing here. But if we go to our contents folder, and I picked this stuff up from the Epic Game Store, like I said, so I just have some stuff preloaded. So I'll just type in grass and just find some grass. Let's see. There's a lot of stuff here. So what if we go to the Advanced Village Pack? Aha, there's some grass. We can drop that into the foliage there. Now, we have to change some things because what we can do is we could actually paint with this. So if we click on the paint section with the foliage tool enabled under modes, and then we click foliage, there's a little brush, and oh, hey, cool. We can kind of paint there. But the issue is that all this grass is going to be identical. So right now it looks pretty plain and static. So let's just undo that. We'll set the minimum scale to, let's say, 0.8 and the maximum scale to like 2. And now, if we start painting, let's just erase this stuff first. Goodbye. Goodbye. And now if we go back to paint with that changed, and actually let's change the rotation, the ground slope angle to be different, and then we can set the height to be like -20, sure, that's fine. If we paint, hey look, there's some grass. Uh-oh, it's a little big. Go to the end of the timeline so all the pieces are down, and then just start painting. Maybe increase the size just a little bit. I don't need to see behind me, I just need to get a little closer. Just keep adding that, and then just keep adding some grass. Get as close as I want, and then maybe bring that size down to like, oh, that's still too big. Let's say 100. Get that nice and close. Oh, too much. Oh God. Oh. Sometimes it's a little funky and scary. Nope, too big. If I hit select, I can select individual pieces, just delete it, and move it around. Now if I go into this other patch of grass, I can just drag that in, uncheck that one, select that second one, and then we'll set the minimum size to like 0.5, maybe 0.2, 0.5, and change the angle. And let's just eject from our camera really quick. If we just get nice and close in here, back to paint, maybe bring up the density of this right there, and I can just start painting in little blades of grass. Ooh, actually that's flowers. That's a little much. So you know what? Let's just undo that. Let's just go back to that regular grass, and then we'll just set the minimum size like 0.1 and 0.5 and bring up that density to like what? 700? Yeah, that's good. And then just like painting around. Maybe decrease the size to like 50. Just get in there nice and close. These dinosaurs are in a field of food. The game is all about eating grass and whatnot. Now they get to eat as much grass as they want. Or as much as I decide, rather. Fortunately, I am a very generous player of board games, so let's just give them lots of grass to eat. That's some nice grass. Okay, let's go back to perspective, look at that UE cam. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Little grass field. Now, what if I want to add some trees or stuff? I could just like go to my content folder, maybe look up tree. And yeah, I see some trees here. I also see a street light, but we don't need to add a street light. Let's just uncheck that. Add check the tree. Set the size to like 1 and 5, and then the random rotation to be like that. And let's just add some single trees. So the paint tool is awesome, but sometimes it can get a little overzealous with things like trees. Oh God, that's actually, you know what? That doesn't look that bad. Let's bring it down in size though. And then let's just select and delete that, because that tree was huge. Little much. Single. Add some trees. Oh God, too close. Boop. Boop. And select, and then move this tree. And then we'll go back to single. Send that back there. These trees would never ever be this close, but we're just gonna ignore that part. And let's just go back to our UE cam. Cool. Now if we go back to our grass, what if we set the max size to like 1 and bring up that density by a lot? Get rid of that. Go to paint. Can we put this on some of the trees? No, it doesn't look like we can actually paint on the tree, but that's okay. Cool. Oh, let's just undo that so we don't get any extra grass clipping. And then we can see there's a little bit of funkiness right there. We can just maybe move that down. And yeah, those trees, typically I wouldn't use these trees exactly for an ad like this. I would find something that fits a little bit better, but for the sake of this tutorial, this gets the job done. So now I have the camera pulling back, all the game pieces coming in, the lighting looks pretty good. I do see that the box is actually not touching the ground. So the way you would fix that is you go into your box, transform, location, and I believe that's the Y location. Click on your graph. No, it's not the Y, it's not the X, it's the Z. And then we'll just delete everything in between, and we will add some cubic and then toggle weight. And then if we go to that last keyframe and then just move that up there, drag it down. Cool. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Save that. And yeah, we have a scene built in Cinema4D, animated in Cinema4D, and then composited in Unreal so that we have a cool scene for this. So now what do we have to do? Well, I want to bring this into After Effects, and if we were to render something like this from Cinema4D into After Effects, it would take a very long time, like 30 seconds per frame, and this is 144 frames. You do the math. But with Unreal, we can do real-time rendering. So let's go to rendering this now. We can go back to our regular mode. Is there anything else we want to change? I feel pretty good with this for the tutorial. Save. Cinematics, Windows Cinematics, Movie Render Queue. Now, we can delete this because I was doing this earlier. We can select the Jurassic Snack 01 livestream promo. And then we'll go into the unsaved config settings. I typically like exporting as PNG sequence. It's just a force of habit, but you can do whatever you want. Delete the JPEG, we don't need that. We'll go to settings, we'll add in some anti-aliasing, and we'll go to output. We will set the folder for this, so MoGraph Livestream 2021, pre-renders, JS Scene 1, and then we'll set this to 3840 by 2160. Click accept. Actually, let's go in there really quick. Let's save a preset, so save as the MoGraph Livestream Render 01. Click accept. Now, before we do any rendering, we just have to do one more quick thing, and that is create a camera inside our sequencer. So we go to frame 0. Right now we're on our camera, but if we scroll up, it's not actually going to look at a camera when we render. So let's add a camera by hitting this little camera button right here, and then we will delete that because it'll add a camera, like its own camera, and I don't need that. I need the UE cam, which is at the bottom right there. And now, if we play that back, make sure I am looking through my UE cam. We can just delete that guy. Get out of there. Don't need that. Cool. Okay. Now we can save that. Window, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue. We can see our render is queued up. We hit the render button, and now we wait. But we don't have to wait that long, because this is going to render pretty fast. Now, this isn't truly real time because prior to showing you this, I did some extra effects. I used something called a post-process volume, which will basically add some ambient occlusion and motion blur, just adds extra cinematic depth to the scene. But for right now, for this tutorial, just to keep this in a reasonable time length, I did that. But now we can see it's rendering and it's going pretty fast. And I like that because now we can easily, very easily bring this into After Effects. So, while this renders, let's go back to Cinema4D really quick. We have this stuff in our scene in Cinema4D, and we have this solid. Let's save that, and let's go to After Effects. Now, what I have to do is I have to import this as a Cineware file. So if I hit Control-I on my keyboard, and I will look for that project file. Oh, that's a render, project file, Cinema4D, and then Jurassic Snack. And then import that. It's going to import the Cineware file into After Effects. And this is important because then we can extract the camera information from Cinema4D into After Effects. So while that imports now, we're kind of just waiting for the computer to do the thing. So let's just check on, oh, looks like Unreal is done. It finished importing that. Very cool. All right. Cinema4D is doing its thing. After Effects is frozen on me for some reason, so give me 1 second.
2,000 years later.
Aha, there it goes. Okay, so I want to bring this into my demo sequence 1. So I'll just drag this in, and we'll hit Control-K on the keyboard and set this to 24 times. All right, I know it's 144, so I can just set 144. Or actually, let me just set that to 6 seconds. 600 for 6 seconds. And hey, there it is. And then for some reason, oh, that didn't come in. It's 24. 7. Let's just trim comp to work area. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go to that Cineware file, and we'll click on Viewport. We'll go to Current, and then we will go to Extract. And we can see that it actually brought in a bunch of cameras and a solid. Oh hey, what's that? Well, if we delete these other cameras, because we really just want the UE cam, turn that on, and hey, there's our solid right there. And it's kind of just interacting with the scene. We can turn off this Cinema4D file, and then if we go back to our project and go into Footage, Pre-Renders, hit Control-I, we'll go to our Pre-Renders folder, and hey look, there's a PNG sequence of our Jurassic Snack thing that we just animated. So we'll import that, we'll hit Control-Alt-G on the keyboard and set that to 24 frames per second, and we can drag that right there. And hey, look at that. There's a PNG sequence from Unreal into After Effects. And we have this solid right here. And I'm going to replace that with a logo. So let's just set this to quarter res just for the sake of the tutorial. We'll call this Demo Sequence 01 Logo Holder. And then we will leave all attributes so that it stays in that 3D space. And now, if we double click on that and we delete that solid, and we'll just go into my images, and I already imported a logo for Jurassic Snack, and then Control-Alt-Shift-G. And you know, that's actually a really small solid, so let's just set this to, what, 1080 by 1080? And then go back, and we can just scale that back down. There we go. Yeah, it does the thing. We were able to import from Cinema4D the camera information and the solid information that we made earlier. And the benefit of that is now I have this pre-comp that I can swap out for anything. So for a board game like this, I might include the number of players, so I can just turn that off and just like add some stats to this. So like 2-player game, ages 7 plus, and then just resize that and go back, and hey, we have that in the scene. And that's how it would make a little 6-second ad in Cinema4D to Unreal to After Effects. It's super easy to do once you kind of know the intricacies of how to get all these pieces of software to work. I prefer with Cinema4D right now over using animation tools in Unreal, only because there's some tools in Cinema4D that allow you to do large complex animation moves without a ton of keyframes, which is how we achieved the animation of all the pieces sort of flying down. And then once we finish that, we can bring it into Unreal and then add the scenes and the elements and whatever else to just give it some atmosphere and depth and fix the composition. And then we can export that in real time, composite in some titles and some text if you need to, and you're done. And overall, that is the workflow that I use from Cinema4D into Unreal into After Effects. Now this is a long one, but at the beginning of this video I did make a mention that I would share with you how I learned the intricacies of working with Cinema4D into Unreal to create motion graphics like this. I typically don't shout things out unless I very vehemently believe in them. I want to speak on behalf of a Mr. Jonathan Winbush and the very kind folk at mograph.com. They have a course on the Unreal Engine and how to create awesome motion graphics for your videos with the Unreal Engine. That course taught me how to use the node editor in Unreal, how to create scenes, where to find assets, how to create 6-second loops or daily renders in Unreal, how to work with displacement maps, all tons of things that I would not have been able to know without spending hours and hours of troubleshooting and time. This class saved me tons of time and enabled me to create these awesome board game projects for my clients. So if you have the time and are interested, I highly recommend checking out the link in my bio about the mograph.com Unreal course. I do not make any commission on that link. I do not make anything. I just need to share that information because I believe that more people should be using the Unreal Engine because it's so cool to basically feel like you're playing a video game while doing motion graphics. So, yeah. I hope you learned something from this tutorial. This has been incredibly helpful in the way I can showcase board game projects quickly. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below or hit me up on Instagram at JohnJagsNee. Hit that like button. It lets me know that I'm making quality content that you value. And if you want to see more like this, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I would welcome you to join the party. And yeah. That's it. I will leave you with this. Eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Goodbye, my friends. Bye. Put the place up. Put my face up.